Hello, hello everyone. We're gonna wait, it is 11 a.m. We're gonna wait till about 4 after and then we'll get started. Folks are gonna start joining in the next few minutes. We'll be talking through mealworms and more today, all things mealworm related. Questions you guys have, issues you might be having, successes, things that are going well, things that are going aren't, etc. If we could get somebody who's in, hey Keith, Keith, can you hear me okay and can you see me okay? You could give me a mic check. All the mics stand up. It's 1 after now. We're going to give it to 4 after like normal. We'll get rolling. Keith, I can't tell if that's a car or a truck in your image there. Somebody could give me a mic check and a video check. Make sure everything's okay. It looks good on my end, but just want to double check. I do see Keith's comment there, so I know comments are on here, so they're working, so that's good. Sound of it is great. Thank you, appreciate it. I gave a thumbs up, but you can't see that because I was too close. There we go. All right, getting some folks in. It has been a long week already, and it's only Tuesday, but in a good way. Lots of stuff done. Made some good progress. Thank you, Gladys. Welcome, welcome. Thanks for coming. All right. Good morning from Oregon, Cheryl. Good to see you. Good morning from Missouri. Shannon, good morning. When we get going, I'm wondering what kind of container I should put the worms in the fridge, plastic with holes or cloth? Really good question. Love it. Yep, if you guys have questions and you want to start queuing them up, go ahead and do that. Scrolling is always fun on this from the phone perspective, but I'll make it work. We'll get started in just another minute at 4 after. Getting close, getting close. All right, we are there, so we're going to get rolling. I see some more folks jumping in. Hello from Swansea, Wales, UK. Heather. I see Felicia up there as well. I recognize that avatar there. All right, let's get rolling, everybody. Thank you guys for joining. So my name is Justin, the Mealworm guy with Midwest Mealworms here in Columbia, Missouri. I'm an admin in the Facebook group, Mealworm Farming Co-op, and try to do these sessions once a week to try and walk through mealworms and more. Anything you've got going on, any issues, questions you might have, any successes, any failures that are going to help us learn things in the future. Please feel free to put those comments in down here. I did have to cancel last week, so I want to touch on that. I did have to cancel Friday. Thank you for everybody's patience and understanding. I had some family stuff. I don't talk about that a lot, but I've got 2 kids, 6 and 3. They were sick last week. Everything's okay now, but I had to focus on that, so I went ahead and canceled and rescheduled. So again, thank you and everyone who reached out. Really appreciate that. All is well, and we're off and running. Very grateful for that. The session today is going to be recorded, so Facebook records that. It'll get posted into our group. Any comments or questions that you have that are in there that maybe we don't get to in time, I'll go back through and look at those once it posts, get some answers and whatnot, and keep things rolling that way. And then again, we'll schedule these and keep them going. As we're going through this, if there are any comments that I seemingly miss or ignore, if you ask a question and I don't even address it or realize it's there, please shoot me a DM via Facebook. Every now and then things slip through and I don't see them, so I'm not ignoring you, I just can't see them. And with that, we'll go ahead and get rolling. So Shannon, I see your comment here. So Shannon asked, she was wondering what kind of container should I put? It scrolled on me. I jinxed myself. What sort of container should I put the mealworms in the fridge? Plastic with holes or cloth? Really good question. Honestly, it depends on what you're doing, right? Context matters, like always. Because both will work. And here's why I do both. So I use really large dough proofing trays in the fridge. Let me grab one of those. I actually have them here. So dough proofing tray, open in the top. You can see the mealworms are actually in there. So I use those in my fridge. I found a fridge that was wide enough that would hold it. And I like leaving them open because what I found is if they're closed, even with holes, they'll build up moisture. And so I needed maximum storage for my need in the fridge here. And so I went with an open tote or an open tray. And then I zigzag them kind of cattywampus, not all the way, they won't fit in that way, but I kind of put them at an angle to each other so that they don't sit inside of each other. When they sit inside of each other, there's no way for that air to escape, and even with holes on the side, I think you probably would get too much moisture. So I'm a big fan of open containers if you can. That being said, when I sell cups of mealworms to businesses, they put those in the fridge, and those cups are closed with a lid on them so that they can travel after somebody purchases them. And they've got holes in them. What's different about that, though, is I put wheat bran in. And so that wheat bran, one, it helps to give the mealworms a buffer so they're not just crawling all over each other and eventually smushing each other potentially. But it helps with the moisture buildup, because the moisture will build up. If you take a couple mealworms in one of the regular blue cups, one of these guys, and you put a lid on it and put it in the fridge with mealworms in it, the moisture is going to build up because there's not enough air movement to get it out of there. And so if you're doing it for personal use, I'm a big fan of just open containers, right? If you have to put a lid on it, you're going to need to vent it or put wheat bran in there so that it soaks up that moisture. But both of those options are going to work okay. I was pretty lucky. I was able to find a fridge that was wide enough for these big trays. They're 24 inches wide, I think, which is not a normal fridge in the US at the time anyway. And so if you've got any sort of container that you can put in there, something that you can stack would be good too, but if you're not going to stack, then open container is what I would do. And if you've got mealworms and you're raising them and you're dealing with them, it's probably not one of those, ooh, I don't want to see that in the fridge and need to close it up. That's one of the reasons I went with an opaque container here, is that, you know, somebody in the house might really like the mealworms when they buy them and somebody else might not at all. So, all right, good question though, Shannon. Hopefully that helped. Cloth bags, I didn't touch on that, or bags in general. So I avoid that for personal use here. Because what'll happen is either mesh or the cotton bags. If you take those and put them in the fridge, they won't build up moisture too bad, especially in the mesh. The cotton one eventually will start to kind of get a little moisture gathering in there. But from a customer perspective, actually I have a customer I'm delivering to tomorrow that they buy 5,000 count bags, and I use the cotton bags. And I like the cotton for that, even in the summer months, because if you use a mesh bag, the frass is going to come out, right? And so from a customer experience perspective, I don't want them to be, you know, having to tote that around or put it inside of something. I want to make it easier on them. And it's worth the potential risk of the cotton bag being hotter or getting hotter in the summer, because they're going to be in a car most likely. It's going to be a short trip from wherever they're going to their home most likely. And so I like the cotton bag because it'll contain the frass in there. It's not going to be a ton, right? They're going into the fridge. They're going to slow down, but they will still defecate. They will still poop. So I like the cotton bag for that. Mesh is okay, but you're going to get that frass all over. So put it inside of something if you're going to use your mesh bags and put those in the fridge. Good question. All right, let me do some scrolling. So I'm at Felicia. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Diane, welcome. Cheryl. Ooh ah. Does only the larger pupa grow into large beetles? The pupa size does directly impact how big that beetle is going to be, yes. So I've seen a range of sizes in the farm here. They'll especially if they pupate early and the larva is smaller, early from a perspective of the mealworm, not like timer in general, but from the mealworm perspective, if they get stressed out or decide to pupate early, they're usually smaller, and then that mealworm will turn into a pupa that's smaller. The beetle will be smaller. They'll still reproduce, they'll still create eggs, they'll still, mate. Nothing wrong with them. They'll just be a little bit size variation. There is some information. I've been seeing a couple growers, one in particular on Instagram, that went through a selection process to pick the largest larva to pupate to get the largest beetles, with the intent, I think, of getting and producing larger, on average, larger mealworms. And so that they've been posting a little bit about that. I feel like Juan Ramos Morales, a researcher on mealworms, I feel like he did a study on this at some point too. I don't think I saw enough there to make it meaningful for me to change anything. I do need to go back and review that though. But I think he did a selection process where they picked based on size, and there wasn't enough of a correlation for an impactful change in my process here at the time. So, all right, good question though, Cheryl. Velazar, I see you out there. I have info on the pump. Oh, hi to all. Hi. I have info on the pump. I took pictures of it, and then Friday, after you made that comment, maybe you jinxed me, but after you made that comment, what was it? Maybe that was Friday? Maybe it was Saturday I came in here? Saturday morning. I came in here before we left town, and I went and started spraying, and about halfway through, it just cut. And so I went over, and the power pack for the pump had gone out. So I had to order another power pack. It came in today. It's working. So my hope was to get video of everything working and piece that together and get one post put out there with all the info on the pump, the model type and whatnot, the power adapter, and the general setup. It is an ATV tank sprayer. I bought it 4 or 5 years ago. I don't have the manual. It's one of those generic, I bought it at a Rural King store, which is a chain in the US. But it's just a generic one that they slapped a random generic brand name on. And so I think you can find one pretty much anywhere. I think what'll be helpful is the pressure for the pump or the wattage of the power pack and whatnot. But I'll get all that squared away and published here in the next few days, so that you can see that. Marjorie, welcome. Good to see you. Sue. So responding to Shannon's question about containers, I have a separate small fridge. Seymour, I have a separate small fridge in my mealworm room that I use to store veggies. When I want to store mealworms, the worms basically just go to sleep. I put them all out for a day or so every week, get them warm and eat, and then go back into the fridge. Yes, that is a perfect storage routine. So throwing them in there, letting them hang out in that coolness, they're going to really get slow, lethargic. You can kind of envision it like hibernation kind of thing. It's just cold weather slows them down, and so they won't need to eat as much. They will pupate, but not quickly, and not many of them will pupate. And then, like Sue mentioned, at some interval, go ahead and pull them out, give them wheat bran or substrate, give them a moisture source, let them eat. If you intend to use them or sell them, then just keep them out of the fridge, right? Get them fed, get them moisture, and do with them what you need to. They'll wake back up or warm back up and start moving around like normal. If you're going to put them back into the fridge to continue storing them, remove any of the moisture sources that are left after that feeding time, usually about 2 to 3 hours. Let them, that gives them enough time to warm up, start eating, get enough in there that they're moving around, so that hopefully everyone in there gets something to eat and drink. And then after about 3 hours, remove any moisture sources that are left. And then put that back in the fridge. You don't want to put it in the fridge with the moisture source, because they're not going to consume it fast enough before that thing starts causing you problems. Excuse me. So, Diane, a question here. I thought you should put a damp cloth over the bin. Is that wrong? Depends on what your context is or what your use is there, Diane. So one reason I think that could be useful is if you are trying to increase your moisture or your humidity level for like your pupa bins, right? So when they're in that pupal stage, they're not actively eating. They've gone into that to basically transition to the beetle, and so they're not doing anything but working on that. And if you increase your humidity, then that's helpful to reduce deformities, to reduce problems whenever they eventually hatch out into beetles, and reduce die-off. And so you don't want to apply direct moisture. You don't want to feed them moisture sources. They're not going to actively eat that. That's not going to help. But what you described, Diane, of putting, you know, a damp, very light damp, right? Not like you know, wet paper towel or wet cloth, something that's just got a little bit of moisture in it, like spritz it with a spray bottle, flip it over and put it on top of your bin over it. What that'll do is that'll create a microclimate inside with ideally higher humidity, right? Like eventually all that humidity is going to go out through the cloth. All that moisture is going to evaporate, but that could be a good way to get moisture or humidity higher for your pupa. In general, though, for like beetles, larvae, general rearing practices, you don't need to put a damp cloth over your bins in those stages. Really good question, though. Thank you. Good questions. I like it. I had hoped I was going to be able to go into the farm, but then with everything having to get rescheduled from Friday and moving it here, it's midday here, and Ben is in there doing some harvesting. So I don't want to go in there because of all the stuff that's floating around. Interestingly enough, along that front, though, one update, I have found a device for measuring stuff in the air, particles in the air, CO2, oxygen levels, things like that. I just put it in there yesterday, came home Sunday to it, and so I powered it up, got it working at home, brought it over here Monday. Right now, what it's telling me is my CO2 levels are too high, so I think I need to ventilate more, and my particulates in the air are much higher than I would have expected. And so that has got me really, the reason I started talking about this is I don't want to go in there without a mask on. I knew not to do that when Ben was in there, when I was in there doing things. Like, we always wear a mask when we're actively working. But when I walked in Monday morning and put that device in there, nobody had been in there since Sunday, and it was still high from a particulate perspective. So I need to work on ventilation, and I need to work on filtering the air. So those are two things that have been added to the to-do list. I was hopeful that I wouldn't have to mess with that, but I'm glad that I've got the data and I can now act on that. So, Nathan, good to see you. Good to see you. Is it okay if we talk about all the success? I think we should share that. That'd be awesome. It's totally up to you. Drop a comment in if you want to do that. And so that was one of the things. And then the other one, yep, the grow tent, pupa at 80% humidity. Did you make the experiment? Yes, it's in there, actively running. What I found is that the humidity was getting into the 90s. I was not expecting that and it makes sense. I didn't really think too much. Like, now that I know, I'm like, well, yeah, of course it'll go up if you put more stuff in there. And I wasn't ventilating it, right? I have no fans or anything hooked up. There's the potential for it, but I haven't hooked anything up. And so I actually had to tinker with leaving one of the doors or one of the zippered openings like halfway unzipped to try to steady it out at 80%. But so far, like, they're actively pupating. I haven't seen a an observable significant difference. Like, I'm still getting beetles out of those trays versus the other trays we started. They seem to be pretty equivalent. What I'm really curious about is, as they start to slow down, and the pupa start to die, am I going to see increase, decrease, or the same? And so we just started that stuff, I think, last week, really being conscious about the dating, right? I had built it, I had tested it, played around with the humidity just to see what it was like and the temp, and then we actively put stuff in there. And so we labeled the trays with the dates. And what Leo did is he put trays, as he sifted on the pupa, he put some of those pupa from the same day that he did that sifting. Some of them went into the grow tent, some of them just went in like we're doing regular in the farm. And so that way, over the next few weeks, we can see how those hatch out and how they compare. But so far, I've not seen anything like super gross, damp, like dead liquefied pupa or anything like that. And so as of right now, it's kind of the same. But we'll see in the next couple of weeks as those bins, as the beetles that are going to hatch and the other ones don't and start to die off, then we'll get a much better sense of what the, sorry, I saw the next question. We'll get a much better sense of what we might need to change or do there. The other thing I'm curious about with that grow tent now, though, is beetles, and potentially putting beetles in there to increase temperature. I need to do some research on that. How much is the CO2? It was like 1900, 2000, even without the fan on, when like Ben was in there actively working. And so, I let it run for a little bit just to see how it responded to him being in there. It definitely got higher because the exhaust fan had been running. And so I saw it tick up, and then, we're going to turn the fan on, the exhaust fan on, and let it ventilate and see how that adjusts in there. But right now I'm kind of in like baseline monitoring to better understand how it goes up and down, when it goes up and down, for all those different levels, and then start to tinker with things very carefully and slowly. What I was happy to see is that it's not like red, oh my gosh, we're going to pass out because there's not enough oxygen in there for us when we're in there working. So that was good. And that hadn't been happening either, right? So even without the sensor, it's not like we were going in there and struggling to, get some oxygen into our body and having issues. It was just more of a wanting to fine tune it. All right, so I'm sorry, I look like I'm looking around the camera. I'm trying to move my body around to be able to see some of the comments here. Let's see. Diane, Shannon, Sue responded about the beetles. To Cheryl, had a period in spring where they suddenly had a lot of teensy weensy. For a while I sorted them out, fed most of the hens, but kept a bin to see what would produce. Hardly a scientific study, but I did not see little reproduced in the next cycle, so doubt it's genetic, more like Justin said, simply environmental. I like that. And that, honestly, let me finish. I also had separated out some monster beetles, same thing. They also produce a variety of sizes. I think there's a big difference between the laboratory facilitated studies and what we actually experience in the insect room or in our colonies, right? And so I think that what's really got me curious is that group that is overseas, from my U.S. perspective, overseas, that's tinkering around with that, but they're actively raising a colony. I don't know how big. That's the other thing is, does it make sense from a larger perspective? But you also have companies like Beta Hatch that they have their own R&D team, geneticists, entomologists, all the ists and iologists are studying that and trying to figure out how to get, for their specific need, the max efficiency. And efficiency is for them is a very different thing than for us, right? And so I think those hardly scientific, I like that because it's real world, right? We can actually produce that and reproduce that. So I think that's awesome. I see Nathan. Sure, if you want to. Just a disclaimer, though, I am local only at this point, but I can spread any experience I've had. Yeah, perfect. All right, so round of applause for Nathan. He's got his LLC established, and he is actively selling to local customers. Super excited. It was really interesting. Thank you, Nathan, for sharing that with me. I brought back memories of what I went through and like the stress and anxiety and happiness and all those feelings. Super awesome. So Nathan is actively selling local and trying to think through next steps for increasing colony size, what could be done, what should be done. And so really excited for you, Nathan. Excellent job. It's exactly what our community wants to see folks do. So very, very cool. Cheryl, thank you, Sue. Good to know. Heather, I messaged you regarding my experiment using an egg incubator, which is fan assisted and has vents. Humidity 7%, definitely a lot less die off of pupa. Heather, I'm not sure who you're replying to, if it was me or if it was somebody else. I don't remember a message. Ping me if I missed that, if I left you unread on accident. But fan assisted and has vents, egg incubator, humidity 70%. 25 degrees Celsius, definitely a lot less die off of pupa. Okay, I wonder if it's the consistency versus 70 or 80. But if it's working, right? But that's really cool. And it has vents, and so it's exchanging air, right? So they're getting good clean air in there, and it's keeping any sort of, it's an enclosed unit, so it's keeping anything else external out, which is good. Interesting. I like it. Nathan, I asked in the group prior, any recommendations for ventilating a garage that does not have any windows or any pre-existing vents? That is a really good question. So if you guys have any suggestions, so Nathan is in the US, and he's wanting to ventilate his garage that doesn't have any windows or pre-existing vents. So I had a similar scenario in the old farm, as well as here, with no like pre-existing openings or anything like that, right? And so I found a high CFM exhaust fan. The ones that you see a lot in homes, like bathrooms, are meant for small rooms, right? Because a bathroom is generally small on average. I'm sure there are humongous ones out there. But you want to look for something that's high CFM, because what that'll do in a garage, you're going to want to pull in external air, and you've got a bigger area than a small bathroom. And so go for a higher CFM fan. I went for a straight line in the old building. There are other options and configurations, but I went for the straight one just to have a straight line from the inside to the out. And then I put an exhaust vent on the outside that fit the exhaust fan size. I think it was 8 inches. I feel like I had to custom order that from one of the big box stores because it wasn't something they kept in stock, but they had it on their website. But I would suggest avoiding the tubing that is ribbed, that's like flexible, that flex tubing, because when you start exhausting that air, your humidity and your moisture content is going to be higher in your garage because of the mealworms. And so when you exhaust it, and it's kind of dusty, right? All that stuff, the moisture and the dust are going to get stuck in there and just eventually cause issues over time. So go with straight. They have straight ductwork that would work. And then you're going to have to punch a hole in something. You could tinker around with, the garage door, something like a cat or a dog door that would be, weatherproofish, right? Sealed. And I'm curious if a door like that would open with enough negative pressure from the inside to where you set up your fan and you've got an exhaust, and think of it like a dryer, Nathan. Like in the US, we've got our dryers that will exhaust outside. Think of it like a dryer exhaust. And so you want to have that dryer exhaust, like they have the things that will open, and then once the fan's not blowing anymore, it closes, right? And so you want to make sure that you've got that on there so that you're not getting pests coming in, air going out when you don't want it to. I'm military, so I don't want to customize my garage too much due to having to sell it within a few years. Good context. Context matters. He saw that. I'm trying to think like a temporary hole, but holes aren't temporary because it's something you're gonna have to mess with. Let me think on that a little bit. If anybody has any other thoughts later, remember all the comments from Facebook, whenever it posts there, all the comments are going to be there. So if somebody thinks of something later, Nathan's comment will be there, and you can go and do normal replies like on posts and stuff that will tag people that are in there. I can't think of anything less customized than a hole, right? Or could you put in a window? Would that be beneficial at all or possible, so that you could, like thinking long term, you get into the spring and summer, do you want to have the ability to have a window air conditioning unit in there? Because then you, like in the winter, use that window to leverage exhausting air. In the summer, use that with the air conditioner in that manner. Maybe something to think about there. But yeah, if anybody else has any other suggestions, let's throw them out there. Velazar responded to the egg incubator. What were previous conditions? Good question. Good question. What were they before? Compare them. See if it's beneficial. More scrolling. So far our people are doing okay at 45% humidity. Good, good, good. That's pretty low. That's surprising that they're doing okay, but that's good. Man, this scrolling is rough. Sorry. Sue responded to the egg incubator a bit. And then I see something here that looks like it's responding to the ventilation from you, Nathan. Oh, yeah, she tagged you. Can you vent through the window using a panel that holds the discharge pipe? Window might be the way to go. Can we share files here? Pictures? I'm not sure. I don't have an option to, I see stickers, but I don't have it's not letting me actually put a comment in, which is interesting. But I wonder if you're on desktop, Belazar, it looks like I do have the option to add pictures there, but I don't. Yeah, I don't from mobile. I was thinking a ceiling ventilation to go up through the attic to the roof. It won't be too noticeable in the future. That could work. Yeah, how is your attic ventilated? Is it properly ventilated? Because you're going to be shooting moisture up in there. Again, think of it like a bathroom. When people vent bathrooms, it's usually not up to code in the US anyway to vent that bathroom directly into the attic because it's going to be moist air. And so even if it's 50% moisture, 40% moisture, generally that's higher than the attic, unless it's raining outside, right? There's some context there that could change that, but it'll cause buildup. If you just vent directly into your attic, you'll see moisture buildup. So that's bad. So you can vent to the attic, but then can you vent out the roof? That's the other thing. And that gets into a whole can of worms if you have to go through the roof. You could look at venting to an eave, right? So like your roof comes here, your wall is here, and there's an eave here. I've seen vents that just shoot that air out and down depending on the orientation of your physical layout. But that could be an option. But yeah, exhausting into the attic could be good, could be a solution, because then you're not going out through the walls. It's kind of hidden and contained within, especially if you're in an area with HOAs, the homeowners associations, right? That could work. That could work. Arizona desert, Shannon, and you're giving the worms a lot of moisture, and it's only 45%. Is it 45% in the bins that have the pupa, or do you have a sensor just in your general farm or general colony area? Sue responding back about the incubator. 2 weeks different than Mealworms trying to turn the pupa from the ones not in the incubator. Oh, so there was a timeline difference too. So they did the ones in the incubator. I'm assuming those were the ones that transitioned to beetles sooner. Interesting. Attic is pretty well ventilated. We just put straight duct from the garage up to the roof. No venting in the attic. Yeah. Yeah, that could definitely work. Depending on the size of the garage, like look at, when I mentioned CFM, Nathan, look at the fan. The fan will tell you what size room it's built for. And so go with those specifications. At one point I tried to cheap out a little too much and bought a fan that was too low and nothing happened. Go figure, right? It didn't have enough to move the volume of air that needed to be moved. So lesson learned. They transitioned to it. Yeah, the pupa were in there and transitioned 2 weeks earlier. Very cool. Wait a sec. Oh, the mealworms were in there. Did I read that wrong? Definitely a lot less die off of pupa. Ah. So did you have pupa in there or mealworms? I thought you had pupa in there based on the original comment. Interesting. Nathan, thank you. You're welcome, sir. You're welcome. All right. 11:34. So I should have checked this beforehand. I think I have an appointment. So I don't know if everyone saw, but there was a thread in the group I was connected to by one of our awesome group members, connected to a company in Canada that is a distributor for the Beacon Camp trays. So I haven't shared that yet because I wanted to go through an entire iteration of ordering, getting them, going through the experience, making sure everything's okay. I have no reason to distrust the company I'm dealing with, but I wanted to go through that before I don't want to recommend things or tell anybody to do anything until I've actually physically done it myself. That tends to not go well, and that's my thing, right? Like I don't just throw things out there and willy-nilly. And so if you hear something from me and I don't say like this is a test or this is a trial, etc. So I believe the trays are shipping. I ordered just a couple pallets. They're shipping this week. So from Canada to here, I'm not sure how long it's going to take logistically. I'm going to wait for the shipping company to get a hold of me. But once I get them, if everything is all wonderful and great, I will be ordering more. And then I'll get details here posted and everything like that. But Alexis is who I've been working with at the company. So very excited, very, very excited. And I was surprised, like from a shipping perspective, I don't need to do anything, meaning the shipping company is going to throw them on a truck, they're going to drive through, customs, that sort of thing, so far has not indicated that there's going to be a huge holdup or anything there. They're just plastic trays, pretty easy to inspect and look at in case they need to, but pretty excited there. So where was I going with that? Why did I mention that? That was one thing that I'm doing. Appointments and things and this thing. And wow, I went on a tangent and totally lost track of myself. I was saying that because I need to go learn how to drive the tractor on the farm. It's got forks on it so that I can unload the truck and not be dependent on folks needing to be around from a scheduling perspective. So I think I can sneak away a little bit later from this. If we need to, if we get on a roll. Otherwise, we'll wrap up around noon if we're starting to wind down a little bit. Noon Central, which is 23 minutes from now. So we got a little bit of time. Just an email for garage ventilation. Can you explain it? Difficult to write. Yes, let me take a look, Belzar. I do see it. And while I'm waiting for this to load up, what this makes me think of is this past session that was successfully held. So Friday we rescheduled and talked through that. But the Zoom meeting that we had. So instead of using the Facebook inherent, live product here where I talk at you guys and you comment, we did a Zoom session, 30 minutes, and folks could get on camera if they wanted to. We had folks do that. Otherwise, just speak on audio or stay on mute and listen. We had a little bit of everything there. So it was really, really good. The downside is it's a new thing, right? So it'd be something for all of us to adjust to, but we could get through that. But I also don't currently have a Zoom license, and so we're limited to 40-minute sessions. And so I haven't wanted to do another short session like that because I felt like we started to get into a groove and then I had to cut it off. And so I kind of felt bad about stopping all that conversation because we were getting rolling, but it was really good. And so one of the things I'm going to look at, I'm sort of in a budget crunch right now because of the trays and the potential for me to start getting more of those. And so I haven't sprung for the Zoom license yet. But I think longer term, that's going to be a good option, especially in situations like this where we could pull Nathan and Belazar up if both are willing, right? Whoever's willing participants, kind of pull them up and talk through this a little bit better instead of chatting back and forth or having, if somebody's on mobile, then it becomes a real pinch point. And so let's get rid of those barriers and see if we can jive on the Zoom. So more to come there. If anybody has any other suggestions or anything, please feel free to DM me or email me, justin@midwestmealworms.com. The goal is to be able to collaborate with each other. I don't mind talking like this, but you guys have awesome ideas, and like this incubator side thing, in my head, I feel like we could pull up folks who might want to talk about that and go through that and get a lot more value out of that. So just something to think about. Anyway, so Velazar, I saw this. Let me try to get past the advertising. Again, budget constraints. I haven't sprung for free YouTube. Sue, I see that comment. And I think based on the bubble that it was just some feedback about Zoom. If there was something in there that you wanted the group to see, ping me again. So I'm watching this now. It's got a garage door. And Nathan, this was for you and the ventilation option. Oh, it's a timer. It's a garage door opener timer. So you can slap it. You can push the button. It opens your garage door to a certain level, and then after a certain period of time, closes it back down. Ooh, that's interesting. I keep going back to a bathroom for some reason. But in a bathroom, they have those switches where you can like push the switch and run it for 10 minutes, or 20 minutes, or 30 minutes, or put it on a timer even. But it's using, what's cool about that is it's using the existing garage door. If you have any neighborhood cats around, or you have your own cat maybe, and that door's open, then there's that. But it opened it just a little bit, right? Like from a safety perspective, it's not something that a human would be able to fit into. Velzar, can you paste that link? It was a YouTube link, right? Can you paste that link here? That'd be something interesting for Nathan to look at. I like that though. That's a good idea. All right, so let me get back and let you guys know where I'm at from a comment perspective. So you emailed about that. Heather and Sue are chatting about the incubator. Sue, it won't let you post again. Is everybody having that problem? No, I see some comments here. It's like halfway through it starts having problems. Anyway, Zoom is better and time is enough in my opinion. Okay, so the 30 minutes was okay. Yeah. Keith, have you tried Microsoft Teams? I used Teams in my previous career path, and it worked. Do I need a license for Teams though? Like, is that something you can just use, or is it like Zoom? You pay for a yearly thing. But Teams it has a similar vibe to me as Zoom. Because what was interesting with the Zoom is that I didn't realize that Zoom had the chat option on the side. And so we could, like as I was going through that, we were talking, and then a couple of people were putting comments in that were on mute. And so that helped, like we could pull that context in, like somebody was in a loud area, and so they didn't want to unmute and interrupt everybody, but they had feedback on the comment or on the topic. So Teams was really good at that because there's a chat there, but I don't know what the option is there, or not option, but feasibility. And I think, like, is Zoom more widely used, like from our community here, Teams versus Zoom? I feel like Zoom is much more prevalent. Ooh, maybe Google Meet too. That could be interesting. I'm gonna write these down and go tinker a little bit. Nathan, all right, so I'm on Keith's comment about Microsoft Teams. So if anybody has commented above there with a question or something that they want some attention to, and I've missed that, please let me know. Nathan, is there a large benefit to feeding nutrition like carrots and apples versus just water crystals? I'm in the process of trying to grow larger mealworms naturally to make bigger beetles. A lot of my local customers are asking for larger mealworms, but I do not want to use any chemicals like big box stores do. Belazar, I feel like you've got some... what did we talk about in one of our sessions? I think it was you. Let me throw the idea out, and if it was yours, you claim it. If it's not, then I don't want to implicate you. But I think it was you who said to try to get bigger worms and reduce pupation. Maybe that's what it was, is reduce pupation. And now my head is wondering, like, could that potentially get larger mealworms? Is to, even in your normal colony room, closet, room, whatever you've got, put the mealworms in a tray or in a container without feed, without substrate, and without moisture, and just let them be. And that I've actually been testing that in my office here. I keep my office, I've got the heater set on 50 degrees. I'm in here, but I don't need to be super warm or sit around in a t-shirt. So it's 50 degrees in here. Well, it's probably about maybe 55 or 60. The heat has not kicked on while I've been in here. And I've got trays of mealworms in here with nothing, just mealworms. 30,000 per, no, 20,000. I only put 20,000 in just to test with for now. And I have not seen Belisar, yes. I have not seen pupation. So they're just hanging out. And they're not pupating. And I'm curious now if that, can we use that to, like, what if we feed them once a week? You know, like if we take 20,000 mealworms and put half a pound of substrate in and let them eat and put a little bit of nutrition in, or a little bit of moisture in and let them eat, so that it's not consistent, it's gone very quickly. Is that like, will they then potentially grow and get bigger without pupating? What do you think about that? Belisar with the ideas. He is an idea machine. I love it. Oh, difficult to paste the link from the phone. Okay. Yeah, and Nathan, I can also send it directly to you if you'd like to do that, because I've got the link here. Because my email's everywhere, right? I throw it all over the place. There you go. And then mealworms. I love it. I love it. I'm excited because that's the business name. So that was, we talked about that earlier. So outside of, I think, Nathan, from a nutrition perspective, I don't know if feeding them the carrots, potatoes, things that have valuable nutrition in it, I don't know if that allows them or enables them to get bigger before pupating. I'm not sure about that. Before I started using water gel crystals, I used potatoes. I went for consistency and repeatability from a process perspective. I wanted to be able to get into that farm and get out as quickly as possible because it was a side job and I was sacrificing my evenings to go out and do stuff. Although I enjoyed it, so it was different kind of sacrifice. And so I didn't notice that I don't notice a size differential from what I had then versus now with them on water gel crystals. That being said, those items, apples, potatoes, etc., they have good nutrients in them that allow, I would have to think, a healthy mealworm that, you know, from a branding or marketing perspective, if you're using, you know, good quality food waste, that's a plus, and you're also giving them good nutrition. You get into the scenario where what is it going to be used for? And although now that as we piece some things together over time here, there was that study that showed that they went through everything in their gut within 72 hours, right? And reptile folks, because I'm thinking about reptile folks with their reptiles that can't have citrus, the reptile folks are familiar with the concept of gut loading, right? You gut load your insects and then you feed those insects to that reptile very shortly after that gut loading process, because they're going to go through those nutrients and they'll go away, right? So you can conceivably structure your message such that, yes, we feed oranges, potatoes, strawberries, like we feed what's available based on what we have, what we can get a hold of. So we have good, well-rounded nutrition for the mealworms, depending on what you get, obviously. And no, fellow customer, you don't need to be concerned about it, because when these go out the door, you know, it takes 2 days, 3 days for that stuff to go through. By the time you get things squared away, packaged up, maybe you end the process right before you package these up. Maybe you feed them only carrots overnight, right? Or only potatoes, so that you know the last thing they ate wasn't citrus. And I'm not aware of other things, you know, like poultry folks, I've not heard them say, oh, potatoes are terrible, right? Like potatoes and carrots, I think, are fairly safe. But that's always something you want to disclose, because you never know what your end customer is going to be doing with that. So maybe you end with those and you can tell them that's what they ate last. Then it takes, you know, 24 hours for them to go through that process. I package them up the next day and then get them to the store after that. So by the time a customer picks it up and uses it, it's not going to have that in there. So might work. Vicky, welcome, welcome. Good to see you. All right, we are 10 minutes away. 10 minutes away from top of the hour. This stuff goes fast. It's exciting. So if you guys have any questions, anything you want to see in the front part of my farm. So for folks that might have joined late, Ben is in the insect room right now harvesting, and so it's loud, and he's got his podcast going, and I don't want to go in there without a face mask because I will start having breathing problems. So we can look in the front part. I said all that and then didn't finish. We can go in the front part of the insect room if there's anything you want to see there. Dehydrator, fridge, brands out there, trays, different things like that. I can do an update on the experiments too if we don't have any other questions or anything that comes up with the beetle flower. Michelle, what is your opinion about finely ground chicken, dog, or cat food for growth, of course, after baking for mites? I feel like I've heard people use that before because depending on what the brand is, right? So you want to think about is that something you want your mealworms to eat and then potentially fall into, you know, like fed to birds, right? Or reptiles or whatever. And if you're using them for your own chickens or your own uses, then that makes that kind of decision much more straightforward. But I believe that there are good nutrients within dog or cat food. I've heard of folks putting that in, maybe not using it as the primary substrate, but using it as like a you know, every now and then top dress kind of thing, putting a little bit in there. Think of it like with the split pea flour, right? 10%. You're going to put 10% split pea flour into your substrate to tackle a mite problem or to be proactive about it. And so I kind of look at the dog and cat foods like that, because the stuff that's going to be low quality, that is questionable, is going to be cheapest, right? And so once you get to a price point that's not cheapest, then there's the potential that it becomes cost prohibitive for what you're doing. And so is it worth is the juice worth the squeeze? And really that's a decision ultimately you can make for yourself. Maybe you've got some because you buy it in bulk because you work at or run a dog rescue, right? Use what you got available. I don't think there's anything wrong with using the dog or cat food, to be honest, as long as it's decent quality. Because remember, it's pet feed, it's not human food. And so the requirements, and this is not a bash on any product specifically, this is just me throwing out information. The requirements for the feed industry are different than the requirements for human food. And so depending on, like cereals for humans, for example, there's a certain percentage of dead crickets that can be in there, right? And the purpose behind it is quality, right? You want to make sure that you're not going to, have lead in your Cheerios, right? So, I get the intent behind it, but for pet feed, the requirements are different. And so it's just good to be aware of that and mindful. And if you've got something that you want to try, I would suggest, I think grinding it up is good because the pellets might be harder for them to chew into for the mealworms. So if you can grind it up or you have it already in that form, I would try it on some mealworms that you're willing to lose, just in case there's something in there. Like remember with chick feed, you want to get non-medicated chick feed. If there's something in the pet food, pet feed. I'm much less familiar with the different types of pet feed because I haven't messed around or tinkered with them. And so if there's something in there that's going to hurt the mealworms, I would rather, test that out on a container, something small that you're willing to lose if it goes wrong. And if it doesn't, do that a couple times, see how things are going, and then go from there. So, all right. All right, so let me tell you guys where I'm at here from a comment perspective. We just talked about the ground chicken or dog and cat food. So that was from Michelle. So Vicky, I'm at Vicky's question about comment, new mealworm owner, in love with these little worms. Awesome. Be careful, because all of a sudden you're just going to have them everywhere. You're going to keep growing and growing and wanting to do more, and we'll be here to help. So glad to have you. Let's see. Nicole, what is the price point for the bins you ordered in Canada? I am not comfortable disclosing that price point. And the reason being is it's not my company. I don't know what their structure is from a price point perspective. What I can tell you is that the price point was worth it, even with shipping included, right? Because they're in Canada. They are shipping from Canada via truck. And so it doesn't need to get on a boat. It's not going to take a long time. The cost is not exorbitant because overseas shipping right now is at least, well, maybe not right now, but over the last couple of years has been kind of crazy from a cost and time perspective. And so what I can tell you is the price point was exactly where I was hoping it would be. Obviously cheaper is always better, right? But it's a good quality product, and good quality products deserve to get a certain amount of value. And so I don't want to disclose what that number is. I am paying for them. So I'm not doing any sort of promotion for them. I'm not, nothing like that. I am paying flat out fees of what any other consumer would do from a purchasing perspective. And so what I would suggest is there is a post in the Facebook co-op group that has information on the company and the person that works there. If you want to go find that, his name was Alexis. That's the person I've been dealing with. So far, everything's been great. I have no reason to distrust or be wary of anything there. I've already sent money. I'm waiting for them to come. So I fully expect everything to be fantastic. But I want to physically have them in my hand before I go that route. But then I'll post it in this group, in the Facebook group and everywhere else, because I had been trying to find that for a long time, and I'm super grateful that I was able to, because I think it's going to work out really well. But from a pricing perspective, that's something for them to work on with you, and then obviously shipping, right? Like depending on where you're at, who knows what's going to happen there, and it's going to vary, obviously. Hopefully that makes sense. If there's any questions or concerns about that, please continue asking questions, challenging me, everything there. I want to do what's best for the group here, but also everybody else too. All right, we are 4 minutes away. I need to scroll some more. Sue, something different. In the past, the frass has always been gray. Now I'm seeing military tan colored poop. Can't think of any reason for it, and does it really matter? It just has me curious. I have a thought. Because I just, this triggers my brain. I just saw something. I made a video this morning that I'm going to get posted about alternative sifting methods. And when I sifted, it was much darker than, like Ben's in there right now working on trays. And because we looked through them yesterday, just kind of see like which trays need to be sifted or which rows need to be sifted. And so it was fresh in my brain of what I just saw. And then within the same colony, just 15 feet away was a tray that I just sifted, and it was darker. And I think it was because it's got more moisture in it. That's my current theory, because everything was fed the same thing, same environment, different density though. So I wonder if that has anything to do with it. I don't know if it would or why, but that was one difference between the trays that he's sifting versus the tray that I had. The tray I had 20,000. And it was basically in storage, or like a sitting area waiting for me to deal with them. And so I gave them wheat bran yesterday and water gel crystals. And they ate through it. And then today I'm going to take all the pupa out in the center, some of the dead ones, there's a few of those, and then get the rest of them into this room just to kind of sit and hang out and see how they do. But the frass was much darker, and I think it's from the moisture, because the other trays were open and had been less density from a mealworm perspective on them. That moisture can get out of there. And so in the bins that I had that I processed today that were darker, I think it just held that moisture in. That's my theory there. Otherwise, like frass, the coloring is going to change based on what you eat it, right? Somebody posted recently that they did carrots and they got orange, right? They tested that out and confirmed what we talked about before. And so I think as you feed them different stuff, you're going to get variations in there, right? So always fun. Vicky, I wish my babies grew faster. I'm so impatient. Yeah, welcome to the club, right? Like everybody in here read that and went, yeah, I know exactly how that feels. Michelle, following up on the dog cat feed, mixing it in. Perfect. Yes, I think that's well worth the test. Well worth the test. Kayla, welcome. We've got a few minutes left, but we'll keep going. If at some point I'll probably cut things off. If I do, I'll respond to the comments, or you can always direct message me too. Email me as well, justin@midwestmealworms.com. I'm going to try dehydrating some. How long do they need to be in the deep freezer first to ensure they have died? So I had some in a deep freeze. This was a while ago, and they were in there for 24 hours. And I thought, surely that's plenty of time. Took them out, went to the dehydrator, started doing a batch, and then I looked at the container that, like, I didn't get all of them into the dehydrator at one time. I looked at the container, saw them started moving around. So, longer than 24 hours, apparently. Had a similar thing happen with beetles recently. I put the beetles, excuse me, we had beetles when I did the beetle flour. I put them in the deep freeze for 24 hours, came back, took them out, and they started going again. So longer than that, if anybody has any suggestions there, definitely throw them out. But you can always check and see, yeah, the scary face, like they reanimated. Like, how did they survive 0 degrees Fahrenheit for 24 hours? But when you think about it, like, that's what insects do. They're built to survive different weather patterns and do different things. So there's something there. But I would say maybe 36 hours. See how that does? I mean, you could go at maybe 30 hours and just pull them out and see if anything's moving after, 10 or 15 minutes, and go from there. But yeah, it was much longer than I was expecting. Sue, one thing about dog food, some brands have additives that can be worrisome. Yes, I've been breeding and raising dogs for many years. I would not use it as the today's substrate, but as a small addition to the diet. Yeah. Google ethoxyquin, for instance. There you go. A good term to look up and see what you can find there. Awesome. Lunch break's over. Got to go. Nathan, thank you. Congrats again. Looking forward to more talks. Yeah, Michelle, thank you, Sue. Thank you for all that you do. You're welcome. Welcome. I'm here for you guys. This is a lot of fun. I've learned quite a bit already today. Maybe what you're feeding. Mine's almost orange because of all the carrots. Ah, there it is, Shannon. There it is. I fed a lot of carrots and always had light gray frass. I do see dark gray in the beetle bins if they start retaining moisture. The tan poop is really different. Yeah, I feel like mine's always tan. Wheat bran and water gel crystals. What did the substrate? So like, even the brand that I buy in 50-pound bags. Sometimes it comes from different plants. Different processing plants, not like different plants that grow in the ground. Different processing plants, different facilities, maybe is a better word I should use there. And so I always wonder if, depending on what that wheat was grown in or how it was processed, there's the potential for each batch to be somewhat variant, right? So I wonder if you got something, Sue, that just had a different something in it. Maybe it was fed something different in the soil the year before, and so the wheat bran pulled that in, or your substrate, whatever it was, pulled that in as it was growing. That's one of the things that, honestly, like, pros and cons of mealworm farming. This is one of the cons where, because things can be so inconsistent and totally out of your control, you're going to get different results and not know why. And from a data perspective, that drives me insane. But you have to get used to not being able to 100% of the time, outside of a laboratory type scenario, know exactly that what you're doing is going to have XY impact, or that there's not some variable there that's not in your control. So, Max in the house. Hello, sir. I do a minimum of 72 hours to make sure they're dead. There you go. Go with 72 hours. Because 24 did not work. Freeze the bugs, that is. Yes. Context there. So put them in a deep freeze for 72. Max, was it deep freeze or was it like a regular fridge in the kitchen freezer? Because the fridge in the kitchen don't get as cold. Thank you, Shannon. I appreciate that. You're welcome. I enjoy this. Good thought, but this is the end of the 40-pound bag of bran. Well, fine. I take my theory and just throw it out the window. But not out the window that doesn't exist over in Nathan's garage, right? Awesome. All right. Well, we are getting to a wind down point, and I do want to. I don't want to get into too much exciting stuff because folks might have to go. We did schedule to end about 4 minutes ago. So throw in any last comments, Max. Let me know about deep freeze versus regular fridge. Like I mentioned very, very early at the beginning, this will be posted in the Facebook co-op group, and it'll have all the comments below there for everybody to go back and reference. I also take this and upload it to YouTube. None of the comments show up in YouTube, so that it's just out there, me talking and answering things. But I had several people reach out that wanted to see this type of information that don't have Facebook or didn't want to access it for whatever reason, which is fine. That's why we have all these different platforms. So thank you guys for all the really good conversation topics. And if anyone has any questions, concerns, issues, things they want to chat about in the next one, shoot them to me. I will get another one scheduled for next week. And hopefully everybody stays happy and healthy and can join. And have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you, everyone.